I can't believe this is happening. His opening night is finally here. We have some brutal news surrounding Joseph Woll as he is injured and won't be suiting up tonight against the Montreal Canadiens. We're going to break down what the injury is as well as the subsequent moves the Leafs have made in lieu of this injury. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. Opening day is finally here. And if you enjoy Leafs content and you're a part of the 70% who aren't subscribed, make sure to hit that button. We're reposting every single day for you guys. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure to hit that button. But Darius, quick reminder to everybody, we have a live stream tonight. We're going to be going live directly after the game, and we have some special guests. You're going to want to stay tuned. Just directly after the game, tune into the channel. We'll be going live. But let's get into some brutal news that we have today, and it is surrounding Joseph Woll. Now, this is the second game that actually counts in a row that Joseph Woll's hurt. We know in Game 7, he went out with the injury, and Ilya Samsonov had to play against the Bruins. And now we got some wild news this morning that Joseph Woll is going to be down. It started with Elliotte Friedman coming out and revealing that Dennis Hildeby is going to be brought up with the team, and everyone started wondering, is he hurt? Because Joseph Woll, we know, just yesterday said that he was excited to play in Montreal tonight, and it was just revealed that Anthony Stolarz will start. Joseph Woll is experiencing lower body tightness and is out. We also have a quote from Craig Berube, which we'll get into in a minute here. But Darius, Stolarz gets the nod tonight, and once again, Joseph Woll is injured and won't be suiting up against the Montreal Canadiens in the much anticipated, for at least Leafs fans, debut today.
Well, first of all, I actually feel really bad for Anthony Stolarz because, yes, I'm sure he's excited he's starting tonight, but he's actually a big fan of the New Jersey Devils. He grew up a New Jersey Devils fan. He grew up in New Jersey, and I'm sure he was expecting to start tomorrow night because obviously Joseph Woll is slated as the number one goalie or the starter for the Maple Leafs. So I'm sure he was expecting to go tomorrow night against his childhood team in his first game as a Maple Leaf. So maybe a little disappointing, but I'm sure he's ready to go tonight. But yes, on the Joseph Woll front, this is really disappointing. Like you mentioned, this is the second game in a row that actually counts that he's not going to be playing in. And obviously the injury is lower body tightness, they're describing it as, and it's more precautionary that he's not actually injured. And he could actually start tomorrow, but that's up in the air. And I thought it was very interesting yesterday. Craig Berube had some thoughts as well. When he met with the media yesterday, a lot of people were asking him about Joseph Woll and if he was starting tonight. And he kind of questioned that and said, did I say anything? Because I didn't officially say that. And we don't know who our starter is going to be. So when I heard that yesterday, I was already kind of feeling uneasy about this because I'm like, if you should probably know who your starter is going to be and who is expected to start. And he did not say anything along those lines. So obviously this morning, everyone woke up, they're at morning skate, and Joseph Woll is not there. And now there's some questions too about why didn't Matt Murray get called up, and why is it Dennis Hildeby, which we can get to as well. And if I'm the Maple Leafs organization, let Matt Murray rest, let him just like chill at home, right? Dennis Hildeby could use this experience of being called up to Montreal and kind of being around the NHL and stuff like that. So maybe that's all it is, or maybe Hildeby's the only one who can be called up on an emergency basis. Because again, this makes no sense with the salary cap. It had to have been an injury. So the fact that Woll is out tonight, and it only came out this morning, I'm sure it's an emergency call it. But a lot going on here, and Joseph Woll is not starting for the Leafs. Not a good start to his tenure as the number one starting goalie in Toronto.
Yeah, very interesting way to start what is a very exciting day otherwise here. And again, Elliotte Friedman this morning said, let's see how this develops during the day, but there was word that Toronto was bringing Dennis Hildeby up to Montreal, and people started going crazy. Concern over Joseph Woll health begins before the season starts. Now, obviously, for Dennis Hildeby, he's going to be in Montreal for a very electric atmosphere, so it's going to be a very good learning experience for him. He probably won't get in. Hopefully he doesn't get in, because that would mean that Anthony Stolarz either has a horrible game or is injured, but he's going to be there ready to play if he's needed. And ultimately, I think it's going to be a very good experience for him, especially as opening night, because there's no world that he thought he was going to be on the opening night roster for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season. But you can see this here. It was a couple days ago. Woll was in some discomfort from a difficult save in practice, but seemed fine Tuesday and talked about the Montreal start with enthusiasm. And this is the part that's a little bit weird. We saw yesterday he spoke to the media. There's some things going around on Twitter, how he joked around with some of the media about the Leafs winning the Stanley Cup and all these things. He seemed in very good spirit, which makes it very strange that, not necessarily strange, but interesting that whatever this injury is, and clearly it happened at practice from a save, it developed to the point where he can't make his start tonight. Now, maybe he's just feeling a little bit extra sore this morning. Maybe he's been feeling a little bit sore. And Craig Berube came out and spoke and said, Woll's experienced lower body tightness on Tuesday. It's precautionary, so we're going to keep him out tonight. So that's, that was Craig Berube on Joseph Woll starting tomorrow. So again, precautionary turned into him not playing tonight. And again, I'm a huge Anthony Stolarz fan. I've been on record saying I think he's going to take over the number one goalie spot. So I'm not worried necessarily about what impact it has in tonight's game, but it's definitely not the way you want to start a season, especially when I'm sure both of those guys were prepared for their starts Wednesday and Thursday accordingly. But ultimately, it's going to be a fun game either way, but it's very interesting. And the cap situation is weird now considering all the injuries and things like that.
And it's a little concerning too, because when you look at Joseph Woll, a big question mark coming into this season, and obviously they signed him to that extension already that only kicks in next season. The question coming into this season is, can he stay healthy? And so far, that hasn't been answered, right? Like he hasn't even really gotten into preseason action. He played a game and maybe a period, I think, or a period and a half of the preseason. So that was a little concerning to start. And then, we're here now where he's injured, and yes, it's precautionary. So what Craig Berube said there does make me hopeful that he could start tomorrow. But now the question is too, do we see Dennis Hildeby make his NHL debut tomorrow night as well? Like that's another question that we have to start asking too. And this is the first week of the season, right? This is not good news if you're a Leafs fan or, the Leafs team, because you just signed this guy. Like that was really the biggest question mark. We know his ability, and Joseph Woll I'm talking about, coming into this season. We know he has the ability and the skill to be a starting goaltender, but the question was the health. And right now we're not getting very good answers, right? So it's a little concerning for sure. And I do wonder if we see Hildeby tomorrow already, right? And the Leafs have a pretty packed schedule in October to start too. So hopefully it is just precautionary. Maybe you woke up with something. And again, as we were talking about, this year's training camp was really hard on a lot of players, and it was really competitive, and a lot of players were going full out and fighting for spots, and guys have bumps and bruises and all that stuff. So maybe Woll was a victim of that as well, but not a good sign to start the year for sure. And like you said, I'm believing in Stolarz. I think he can be great. There's not a huge sample size of him being a starter in this league, but I believe in him at least for tonight, right? And seeing where he takes the Leafs this season. But if we're already relying on him to be the starter, it's going to be an interesting season.
Yeah, and after Freeman posted that, a bunch of people were saying, don't be concerned. Wall's probably going to start tonight. Everything's okay. He's just heading to New Jersey early. It's not the case. Again, he's not
Not the
playing
case.
tonight, so he is going to be out. And again, Wall and Stolarz spoke to the media yesterday, and there didn't appear to be any issues. Berube wouldn't confirm the starting goalie, and ultimately, it is Joseph Woll. And that's the bigger question now. It's not necessarily about tonight's game because they are playing it back-to-back. If he is hurt tomorrow, do they go with Dennis Hildeby, or do they even play Stolarz on the second night of a back-to-back, 2 games into the year? That's the question mark that's going to be had. And another thing is, now there's a lot of pressure on Anthony Stolarz, because if he has a really rough game tonight, it's his first game with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He wants to make a good impression. But now you have the question mark of what do you do with Dennis Hildeby tomorrow? I think a lot of it depends on how Stolarz does, Joseph Woll's health, and ultimately, I don't know if Dennis Hildeby is, I'm sure he's ready and he'd be ready to step in if needed, but I don't know if that's a path the Leafs want to take in the second game of the year. But if they're forced into it, then that could be there's a lot of interesting scenarios now that are going to happen over the next 48 hours, even after and beyond tonight's game. The biggest question mark is Joseph Woll's health, among many of the other injuries that are going down with Hakanpää, Yarncroc, and all these guys. Any final thoughts?
The way I see it right now, I think if Hildeby has to start tomorrow, they'll be okay with that, because if it was last year, like we saw, they're okay with playing Martin Jones 2 games in a row, right? But this year, I think they're kind of ready to start letting Hildeby, get a taste of that NHL action. And I think it has a lot to do with the Marley season not starting yet. Once it does, I think Hildeby is going to be their starter, and they're not going to touch him, and they're just going to let him, marinate in the AHL and really feel good about his game and gain that confidence. But Matt Murray will be the guy to get called up. But I think a lot of that right now, why it's Hildeby right now, is just to get him that experience. And maybe he doesn't play, right? But just to get him around the guys in a real NHL game and get that experience again. So I think it has more to do with that than, he's the guy over Matt Murray. I think once the Marley season starts, then he'll be the Marley starter, and we won't really see much of him for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree with that. And let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. Again, we're going to have a stream right after the game, so make sure to tune into that. And hopefully the Leafs can finally, or can win tonight, because Leafs hockey is finally back. We'll see you guys later.